August 2002. A peaceful night on a beach near Jacksonville, Florida is shattered by a horrendous crime.
I think somebody's been shot.
Do you see a gunshot wound, sir? Do you see him bleeding?
Either a gunshot or stab.
The injured man was Justin Barber.
I was grabbing him. I was trying to do whatever he could. I was trying to grab that gun.
He told police that he and his wife were walking on the deserted beach when an unknown gunman shot them both. Justin Barber was wounded. April Barber was dead. Police suspected Barber may have had a role in the death of his wife. And as it turned out, Barber left behind evidence he never dreamed even existed. Like millions of Americans, Barber searched the internet for information. And like most Americans, he used the search engine Google to do it. Barber kept the results of those searches on the hard drive of his laptop computer. But even if he had deleted them, they would have been kept somewhere else. At Google. Google keeps a record of every search that has ever been conducted by anyone who has used it. And in most cases, those searches can be tracked back to the specific individuals who conducted them.
Right now, the default rule for Google and pretty much all of its competitors is that they keep everything. They have a log of every search made through Google since it started in the dorm rooms at Stanford. What you Google for defines you. A log of your searches on Google or any other search engine is practically the closest thing to a printout of the contents of your brain that we've ever seen. It indicates your political leanings, your religious leanings, your medical concerns, your sexual concerns, a vast array of sensitive data that in the past no one ever had.
I started yelling for April. And running up and down the beach. You didn't see her?
So while Justin Barber was telling police his story about how his wife died, the record of his Google searches made a few months before the shootings was telling a very different story. Investigators turned up queries such as trauma cases, gunshot right chest, and life insurance homicide. Barber was charged with April's murder.
There was a Google search in which the keywords trauma, cases, gunshot, right, and chest were the searches that were used.
His Google queries were part of the evidence used during his trial.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Justice Murders Barber, guilty of first-degree premeditated murder as charged in the indictment.
In July of 2006, Justin Barber was convicted of murder and sentenced to life without parole. The case of Justin Barber is just one example of the ways Americans are being watched more closely than ever before. It is big business that collects most of the data about us, but increasingly it's the government that's using it. And nowhere is the convergence between private industry and public law enforcement more in evidence than on the internet.
Welcome.
AOL is one of the largest communities on the web.
You've got mail.
As in every community, AOL has its share of bad apples. But when AOL members commit a crime, their behavior online can often be used as evidence against them.
My name is John Ryan, and I serve as Chief Counsel.
John Ryan, a former New York City prosecutor, is AOL's Chief Counsel for Compliance and Investigation.
We are the principal interface on behalf of AOL with the law enforcement community.
You've got pictures.
When AOL finds any of its members exploiting children or engaging in any sort of criminal activity, the company will work with law enforcement to prosecute them.
We responded to 2 after-hours emergencies this week.
We were granted exclusive access to a meeting of AOL's Compliance and Investigations Unit.
All right, Ann, what's going on in the world of search warrants?
I'm getting about 30 a week, so I think that might pick up.
What types of crimes are they focusing on?
Mostly sexual crimes.
Ryan's staff deals solely with law enforcement issues.
It was something that AOL learned in terms of child exploitation.
There are court orders, warrants, and eavesdropping requests that are served on the company every day not to mention the roughly 300 subpoenas it receives every week. AOL complies with many of those requests.
The charges in this case were child pornography as a result of an AOL member sending child porn through our network, and that's how the law enforcement folks became aware of this individual.
Don Coakley, the Director of Law Enforcement Affairs, spends much of his time in court testifying against AOL subscribers.
The defendant claimed he had no knowledge of the child pornography on his computer, and he actually took the stand to admit this. But I came on board as a rebuttal witness simply to say, we have evidence on our network that you used your AOL account to send the child porn.
AOL does not keep a record of the specific sites its members visit on the web or their instant messages, but it does keep your emails.
Why do you store emails?
It's for the convenience of the member, and it's very limited retention periods. Currently, for email, we only store it on our servers for approximately 28 days.
Unread emails?
That's correct.
Now, what if I receive an email and I delete it?
Only 2 days.
While emails are of interest to law enforcement, most investigations begin by trying to establish identity. AOL, like all internet service providers, can identify users and gather evidence by what's known as an IP address, a unique number assigned to every computer that connects to the internet. It can be used to determine who that computer belongs to and what a person using that computer did while online.
The IP address, I would say, is the prime ingredient to any law enforcement investigation because that provides the key to what we refer to as identity information.
How long do you keep that information?
Approximately 30 days.
But law enforcement has the ability to extend that time. So-called preservation requests are delivered to AOL every day, requiring the company to keep emails or IP addresses beyond the normal time frame.
What's the standard for a preservation request? Is it the same search warrant kind of thing? Or?
No, it's a very low threshold. It has to be made by a governmental entity, it has to be in writing, and it has to be a very precise request. They just can't say, preserve any and all records relating to John Doe. They have to, narrow it down in written form.
And are emails and IP addresses of help to law enforcement? The FBI says yes.
It's been very productive. I mean, keeping in mind, we have a tremendous amount of due process that we need to address.
There's a lot to go through. That being said, I would assume there are times when it's helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all very helpful.
In August of 2005, the Department of Justice subpoenaed AOL, Yahoo, MSN, and Google, seeking records of what people search for on the internet. The subpoenas were part of an effort to resurrect a federal law protecting children from internet pornography. Google successfully fought the request in court, but the rest of the major search engines complied. That concerns privacy advocates.
We need to be worried about both companies that collect our information and the government, because many companies are very solicitous to law enforcement. AOL, for instance, is not under any obligation to keep data after the user deletes it. And so in keeping it, they are specifically setting up the system to allow the government to gain access to more of your communications.
The risks from keeping information were made clear in August 2006 when AOL mistakenly made public 20 million separate internet searches conducted by hundreds of thousands of its subscribers. While the users were not identified by name, it is possible to identify some of them by their searches. Unlike AOL, which keeps personally identifiable search data for 30 days, Google keeps your searches forever. There are over 200 million Google searches every day, a number that keeps rising. And it's not just search. Google's ever-growing portfolio of products, each designed to extract information from the world around you, also extracts information about you, much of which Google keeps. Gmail is one example. Its vast storage capability allows for an infinite number of emails. But if you don't delete them, neither will Google. And even when you do delete emails, Google keeps them for 2 months or longer. Just why is it keeping these records? Google declined our request for an interview.
What they're talking about is data mining.
Privacy advocates worry that the company may someday want to sell personal profiles of its users. Fueling those fears, Google worked to exclude itself from a privacy bill in California designed to better regulate commercial data brokers, companies that are in the business of personal information.
One of the strongest opponents to this law is actually Google. Google wanted an internet service provider exemption, perhaps because someday down the road, Google would be a company that sold personal information for a fee.
The law, which has yet to be passed, no longer applies to Google.
Next on Big Brother, Big Business.